And so that is our starting point tonight for our Taking Stock panel, basically because where else could you start? We're joined by Scott Phillips from The Motley Fool and CEO of Opera Australia, Rory Jeffs. Thank you both for joining us. Usually we try to pick a more serious business topic to start, but I mean, you could not go past that. Scott Phillips, welcome into the show again.
Thank you, Brooke.
What is happening in the world?
I think Kanye just out-Trumped Trump, I have to say. That was some pretty impressive performance. When you leave Donald Trump speechless, you've done pretty well, and Kanye's held court in front of effectively the world's media and the most powerful man in the world, and pretty much owned about 90% of that conversation. It was incredible.
Unbelievable.
Rory?
What a monologue. Rory?
I thought it was fabulous. You know, the thing for me is that after 2 years of watching meetings where Donald Trump is sitting there destroying the English language, and you see lots of people sitting around the table looking dumbfounded, to see Kanye West doing the same and Trump looking dumbfounded, I mean, it's just fabulous.
She was on the other foot completely.
Absolutely.
I loved it. I loved the bit where Kanye also showed the cameras his phone. He was trying to get something off it and typed in his passcode, 0000000. Because, I mean, who hasn't got a stupid password on their phone? I must admit, because then there was a discussion of surely someone, you know, as famous as that would have a better passcode to lock their phone.
You'd think so.
You're not a 000 man, are you,
I'm not a 000 man. I know a little bit better than that, but only just.
I'm only just better than that. I go down. Sorry, I just revealed all.
You have to change it after the show.
Give me 10 minutes after the show and I'll be able to say I'm not Trump.
Exactly. Yeah, it made me think about my password today. Guys, it made me wonder, we heard Kanye say when he puts that hat on, the Make America Great Again hat, it makes him feel like Superman. Rory, anything make you feel like Superman that happens in your life? I believe you have a flying habit. You feel like Superman when you're behind the plane?
I'm a recreational pilot and I do it for just sheer enjoyment, and it's one of the most wonderful things in the world. But I'd have to say probably the only time I feel like Superman is on that incredibly, but only in my youth, the incredibly rare occasion when I would be worse for the wear in the morning and I put my underwear outside my trousers.
That did happen, did it? More than once, maybe.
You may well say that, but I couldn't
I couldn't possibly confirm.
I said, down to make sure I hadn't made the same mistake. I'm pleased to say I've done the right thing today. I'm a bit of an investing nerd, so I'll go with a couple. A bit of product placement unintentionally, but we've got Jester's caps at the Motley Fool, and so I whack one of those and literally the bells, the whole lot, and it's kind of, I'm an introvert by nature. You get to step outside that and do the whole court jester thing, which is fun. And same with the headwear story, again, really nerdy. A Warren Buffett cap I've got, which has got Berkshire on the front. I put it on the mirror. I feel like a little bit of Warren, just enough Warren Buffett to feel like I could maybe in the same postcode on a good day. So that's about as good as I get, unfortunately.
That's very Kanye. Brooke, how about you?
I was trying to think, when do I feel like Superman? I don't have any fancy hats.
Oh, there you go.
I should.
Well, yeah,
I've always wanted one of those Dow 10,000 hats. If they kind of come and go.
Yeah, well, the Dow 40,000 hats, of course, never quite got used. That was the one, right?
No, I sometimes feel like Superman, you know, around the kids. They make you feel amazing when you're just doing something pretty lame, but yeah.
That's good.
Oh.
Me? Okay, fine.
Come on.
I was going to get
I know that was a lame answer.
I did think about this before, and it's an incredibly weird reference, but I don't suppose anybody, maybe someone at home has seen the movie Sandlot, kids. Anyway, probably haven't. There's a pair of shoes. No, I'm not in it. I wish. It's an amazing movie, but in the movie there's a pair of shoes that the kid puts on. PF flies make you run faster and jump higher. When I was a kid, it's all I wanted was a pair of PF flies, and I still to this day can't find anywhere that'll sell them. So I don't know if they're real or fake, but you know, I'm sure if I got a pair, I'd feel like Superman.
Still got it.
I can sell
in
you
your
a
head.
pair.
Oh, that'd be good, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, we're going to talk about this 86-year-old founder of a Canadian auto giant that we saw in the newspaper, who is now suing his daughter for $500 million. Okay, he is a billionaire, but it's still a large sum. Appreciate not everyone has family feuds on that kind of level, but family and money, it doesn't often go well. There are often feuds about money. What do you think? Any big feuds in your household, Rory, when it comes to money?
Not in my household, but I think all of us know families where money gets in the way of the relationships. And, I mean, it's extraordinarily sad, isn't it? But that doesn't ameliorate the fact that it happens. If I think of experiences I've known, the people who come out of it best are where they either get mediated, where they have no say on the outcome, and it just happens, or where people write off the money for the sake of life, because life doesn't go on forever, and you can't take it with you.
That's right. I think it's interesting that something like this can blow up and kind of end up in this kind of courthouse squabble when the stakes are so high. It feels like that they should have been managed through this. I mean, surely $500 million.
It's an astonishing amount of money, and it's worth $1.9 billion, by the way. So, yeah, look, $500,000 is a lot to go, right? But,
sure.
But when you got what's left, and again, as Roy says, the fact that you kind of mess up with family to make all that happen. Of course, there's been Australian examples of that, of you know, family fallouts and that kind of stuff. We all know the headlines, and it tends to be they get the headlines, and B, they're larger amounts of money, right? So dusting a couple of bucks here or there's not a big deal. When it gets into the 7, 8, 9 figures, that starts to get pretty serious. From a personal finance perspective, I have to say the best thing to do is talk about money with your spouse, your kids, your parents. Make sure you get that bit right. And the other thing is give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. I don't mind the occasional gadget. My wife's good with that. She buys her shoes. I'm good with that. And it kind of you don't constrain things so tightly that you feel like you have to. It's almost that idea of, you know, the tighter you try and control something, the more likely it is for a breakout or a bust out, right? When you have a good relationship and you work backwards forwards, whether it's parents, kids, whether it's spouses, other things, getting that bit right makes a huge amount of difference. And a bit of wiggle room to say, you know, I can go and spend a couple of bucks over here, over there, without feeling like I've got to, you know, come grovelling and say, oh, sorry, honey, I did this. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, you can
In
work.
this particular case, though, he's 86.
Give it up. You reckon? No.
The inheritance is going to probably go to the kids anyway,
billionaire
right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of one of those things.
But billionaires never think they're going to die, though. I think they think they go on forever.
It's like
So
Superman, right?
yeah.
You must have
Yeah,
at some level to make that
Yeah,
sort of
actually,
money.
I
He
did
needs
it.
the money back to buy his Superman out.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah,
I actually interviewed Richard Branson yesterday, and we asked him, what about, you know, do you ever slow down? He said, it'd be a waste if I slowed down. You know, there's still so much more in me. Of course, he's not as old as that, but yeah, they just kind of think like that, don't
Yeah,
they?
they have to.
As they're optimistic by nature, I think, as they are.
That's right. Speaking of, well, the opposite of optimism, we've also got to talk about what's going on with the banks at the moment. There was pretty incredible scenes when Shane Elliott, the CEO of ANZ, said to the parliamentary inquiry that he's shocked and dismayed, horrified at everything that's been going on. And then he handed out his own personal email address and said, please, if you've got any issues out there in the public, if you're a customer, send them in to me. I will respond to them personally. So I guess the question is, what do we think? Is this a gimmick or is it the real deal? Rory, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a great example of leadership to actually put your hand up and say, I'm responsible, because it's very rare you see that in the political sphere or mainly in the corporate sphere as well. So I think it's great that he's done it. It is tokenistic unless he follows through. My one comment would be, do the shareholders of ANZ really want their CEO spending all their time responding to individual complaints through his personal email? It's actually his business email, but his personal one at work.
Yeah.
That seems to undertake to reply to everybody personally seems
That's
extraordinary.
a really good point.
And the crank emails that you get too.
Can you imagine? I mean, you're already getting
huge.
some already, right? You've basically said, put on a big billboard, here's my email address. Anyone who can be bothered, who wants to, or just for the sake of fun of it. Of course, we saw the phone number of one of the
Alan
politicians.
Jones. It was Alan Jones's phone number.
Exactly. So there's a bit of precedent for it. It is absolutely the depths to which the banks have sunk, though, that he feels he needs to do that. To Rory's point, is a case of, you know, how many adjectives? Saddened, shocked, embarrassed.
So many.
There was five or six of them, and then he's pretty much saying, well, we screwed up. What else do you do but say, I guess, as Roy said, the buck stops with me, here's my email address, I'll get it fixed. Remains to be seen whether they properly get it fixed, though, whether this is just a bit of veneer, a bit of wallpaper. Once the glare of the spotlight goes away, what really changes at the banks, that's what we're looking out for as shareholders and as customers, to work out whether the future is brighter than maybe it looks right now, or whether there's going to be another 12, 18 months of just, you know, bank CEOs apologising and trying to grovel their way back to some sort of respectability.
Yeah, and the reason I thought that was particularly interesting is it was kind of symbolic of the last 2 days, where finally all the crap in between had been taken out. The lawyers have compared to the Royal Commission hearings, the lawyers are taken out, the middle managers, all the other faces that turned up, except the CEOs. And the last 2 days, it's right to them. The questions were right to their faces, and even customers were there listening to it. And I believe in the breaks, some customers were speaking directly with the CEOs as well. I think that's quite a big moment for the banks, I think, to have gone face to face with customers and parliamentarians.
I have to say, you know, providing there's more behind it, I think good on him for putting his hand up and saying it was my fault. You know, I take the blame for it. I think that's really good.
He also said that we've sacked about 200 people as a result of all of these findings. I mean, it sounds okay, but they employ 50,000-ish? I mean, what do you say to that?
And you've got to say, the thing about the Royal Commission and this particular parliamentary inquiry is we'll know it by what changes as a result, right? So if you create the conditions, incentives, structure, culture, people to end up doing the wrong thing and then say, I'm terribly shocked, I'm surprised, how could this possibly have happened? The answer is because you incentivised a group of banks. And this is not just ANZ, by the way, this is all the banks. If you incentivise certain behaviour, you can't be surprised when it happens. And then to say, well, give me, here's my email address, fine, that's one thing. Are you going to change the culture, the incentives, the structures that create this problem in the first place? If you're just going to sack people and expect the next guy or the next girl to not do anything differently because their $1 million bonus is reliant on them hitting their targets, you're going to end up with exactly the same behaviour. When banks were motivated less by these bonuses they're being incentivised to deliver, they were more responsible corporate citizens. It's hard to break that next unless you literally say, no more incentives for bad behaviour, we'll incentivise things that actually matter to us and our shareholders and our customers, not making the next quarter's number, the next year's number. That's where the problem starts, that's where it's got to finish.
And I think one has to accept that people working in banks generally are, have a lot of self-interest in terms of what their bonuses are going to be, etc. To me, it's about moving the culture, which is prevalent in the not-for-profit sector, which is about moving from self-interest to enlightened self-interest. So you do well by doing good by others.
And yeah, that's interesting because, as you said, you're a not-for-profit, but you've got to still be commercially viable, and you've got, different stakeholders that you've got to juggle as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have sympathy with the way they've got to juggle things, or you can just see right through what's happening?
Oh, no, I think we all have to juggle things. We're not for profit, we're certainly not for loss either.
Yes, exactly.
But it's, we operate on really thin margins, but I really understand the maximisation of profit in a commercial business versus doing the most you possibly can and still break even for a not-for-profit. It's a similar mentality.
Guys, thank you so much. Good fun and some good messages as well. Scott and Roy, appreciate that very much. And why not? Be Corte at yourmoney.com.au if you'd like to let us know what you think of the show. Go for it.